Hey everyone, it is Kai, and today we're going to talk about Zeroth Dragons. Now, what are Zeroth Dragons? Zeroth Dragons used to be these big cards that you can only ultimate stride into, and they have crazy effects, and they can usually win the game for you. But nowadays, with Standard and V and all that stuff, and like Prem Collection, I guess, that made a big impact. Do we really need Zeroth Dragons anymore? Or like, do we want to outspend this? Look at these prices. They're actually not that cheap. Before they were like 200, 300 bucks, like Drachmas and Megiddos. And nowadays, they're probably around the 100 buck mark. So, except Stark. Stark got gypped. He's like only 45 bucks. But yeah, if you look at like Ultimas, 100 bucks. Zoa's not even available here. Like 80 bucks, 80 bucks. Megiddo, Moigidos, around 80 bucks. Yeah, so around that mark. Do you want to? That's like two, 3 VRs. So do you want to invest that money when you start off in a premium to for a card that you might not even need? So we'll go through every single Zeroth Dragon and basically every single clan on if they need their Zeroth Dragon or not. So let's start off with Ultima. He's the United Sanctuary one. Let's take a look at his effect here. I'm not going to explain the effect, but I'm going to talk about the clans that will need them and will not. And I'm gonna be frank. I'm gonna be real. All right. I'm not gonna be half-arsed and say like, yeah, it's good to have. All right. I'm just gonna say if you need it or not. Right? Is this an integral part of your deck? I think 1 or 2 clans I will say, yeah, you probably might want it because of these reasons. But honestly, if I was to go like in the middle route and say, yeah, you might need it. Basically, you might need every single Zeroth Dragon. Right? There'll be niche situations where a Zeroth Dragon will just straight up win you the game. But yeah, it still happens. But I'm going to be a bit more harsh and say yes or no. So, we have Ultimate here, United Sanctuary, Zeroth Dragon, Royal Paladins. Yes, we do want Royal Paladins. Why? Because it's great at calling your required stuff, good at getting the triggers, and basically setting up the field for a final turn and winning the game. Usually, when you play Blasters as Royal Paladin, it's required. Maybe if you play like Ultima and stuff, you don't, but with Blasters, I think you do. For Shadows, you don't, because Morpheus is just straight up better. Genesis, I'm gonna say no, because Genesis, you have different ways to play Genesis right now. Of course, there is the meme way, where you don't need any strides at all. You have the, you have kind of like the Wiseman build, again, and that doesn't really need this. You have like Amaruta to do that, and other crazy Genesis builds that probably haven't been revealed yet, like maybe if you like things like Minerva, like Regalia, I don't even think that needs this at all. So definitely not for Genesis. OTT, you kind of can, but you don't. All right, we're being harsh. You don't. You have Ichikishima that does the job for you. This is like your last investment that you might want, and you might not even play it. And then the last 2 clans are yeses, right? Angel Feather, Ultimate is kind of like an integral part of your finisher combo. If you play Rescue, yes, of course, you want to trigger, you get those extra triggers for Rescue. You might get stands, you might hit stands, you can press your deck to hit more stands, you know, you can hit, like, basically just do a lot more trigger checks. Sometimes just keep on looping stands and keep on restanding, so Ultima, very important for that, and then overall, it's also another big no-CL finisher as well, for the same reasons, right? Depending on, just basically, really depends on what kind of Angel Feather you build, but the best kind of Angel Feather at the moment is still those Rescue abusers that center around like looping things when Ultimate is in play. Because Ultimate does make all your trigger checks or damage checks affect the whole field anyway, so the Rescue component just works really well with that. And Gold Paladin, okay, so Ultima works really well with Excel clans, because your trigger checks gets like infinite more value, right? Unfortunately, with United Sanctuary, there is only one Excel clan in there, so that's Gold Paladin. But because Gold Paladin, you know, is actually pretty decent, has crazy angel that can stop nulls. In general, it gets lots of Excel circles pretty quickly. Ultima works very well, and still one of the big win conditions of the deck. Now, moving on to Drachma. Drachma was one of the original Zeroth Dragons. Used to be very expensive too. Nowadays, it has kind of fallen out of favor simply because it's gotten slight nerfs. Basically, you know, with Protect decks now, when you force your opponent to discard, they can just choose to ride the Protect, and then since you can't ride a Protect, they just ride anything from Soul and just make you feel bad. So Drachma kind of fallen out of favor. As another way is like a lot of cards draw, like a lot of decks now draw a lot of cards and plus super hard. Still very expensive though, which is crazy, but I think this is just because it's the higher rarity version. But what red clans actually need it? So, Kumu doesn't need it. Nuadai is actually just way better. And Nubatama I think is one of the few clans that you will want to have this, because Nubatama, you have Jam your Congo, you can discard your opponent's hand, and this guy just kind of discards him even more. So Nubatama is a yes, but then for like Touch Kaze, Narukami, and Kagura is pretty much like a no. Touch Kaze, you kind of want to win faster, and then if you're going to a point where you want a Drachma, I think you've done goofed. Narukami, you have a Stunverse. Stunverse is pretty great, and just playing standard, I guess. But okay, you could say that Narukami can run this and just kind of do a quick field wipe to cripple your opponent and then still continue playing standard, because it's playing standard all the time anyway. So I guess you could put reasons for that to want to run a Drachma, but I still don't see where it fits in the game plan, because, you know, you still got to, Stunverse is just really good. Stunverse kind of does the same thing, so it's a no. And then Kagura is kind of a no as well. I mean, Kagura does have quite a few slots, so you can just kind of jump this in, but when are you going to run this, right? Like, when you use a Drachma, you can still at least do your Legion play, but overall, I don't see any. It's very hard to find a time when you would want to go into a Drachma rather than any other stride or go into your Legion. So this is a no too. So Drachma gets gypped. Surprisingly, still a lot of money for this card. I think it's because the rarity was they didn't print as many Drachmas, but even looking at these, they're all out of stock and still quite high price. So it's pretty interesting for Drachma prices. For green clans, we got our buddy Zoa. All right, Zoa used to be kind of a fun little joke stride that randomly wins games. But now it's become an integral part of a lot of green clans win condition. If you play Mega Colony, yes, because if you run Antlion and Phantom Black, you just chuck this in. It's another win condition that you can have. Even if you don't, you might as well do it. And I think every deck pretty much just runs those Antlions and all Phantom Black, one or the other, or even both. So yeah, you're chucking this in. Great Nature as well. This is like an integral win condition for Great Nature. You can give something guard restrict and then Zoar it, so it's very hard to guard it. You can like you make things like they can only G guard to successfully guard the attack, or you can just put it on a restander or things like that. So there's also ways to abuse Zoa in Great Nature. So this is a definite win condition for Zoa. Gives you like another playstyle, right? Great Nature can be very aggressive, draw a lot of cards, and just pump up like huge numbers. Do many attacks, but with Zoa they can also deny damage in those bad matchups and deny damage and then try and go for the one-shot play. So Zoa, 100% needed. A Neo Nectar. What does Neo do anything now? Does Neo do anything? I mean, I'd say just dump it in Neos and hope for the best, but like I don't even like Neos right now is like in such a bad spot. I don't even think you need Zoa. You might not even need Neos, to be honest. Like, you can Sandrine multiple times a turn, right? So you can get to your ultimate strike quicker, but I mean, you can just G-Guard. In other clans, you need G-Guard, right? So, but yeah, no, Zoa is required for at least 2 of the 3 green clans, which is pretty good. Blue clans, we've got our good friend Megiddo. Yeah, you need it for Bermuda Triangle, because Bermuda Triangle does set up big force columns, and you just basically swap all your stuff into the into that force column and do. It's just a great finisher as well. Grand Blue, again, yes, because instead of force columns, you have Skull Dragons. So you just shuffle a bunch of Skull Dragons in and bash their face. And then for Aqua Force, it's not really required at all. It's nice to have, but you don't have the same power levels as Bermuda and Grand Blue can get. So you don't really need this Megiddo. The problem with Aqua Force is that there's not that many good strides anyway. I mean, you got Alexandros, you got Jumbolt, you got like Valiers. What else do you have? You don't really have anything else. So you might as well just chuck. Oh, you have Ballerina, yeah, but you might as well just chuck the Megiddo in, right? But at the same time, it's like, what are you doing? It's your very last ditch effort. And I don't think this last ditch effort is worth the $70 unless it's like the last thing that you need to buy. So for Aqua to know, but you know, overall, yeah, 2 out of the 3 clans, still very, very respectable. Moving on to Stark. Now, Stark is kind of interesting. Stark was one of those cards that were like, oh man, back in G, Stark is really cool. Nowadays, it's gone out of favor, not because Stark is not strong, but because the clans it supports are kind of not great, right? It's not great. So, Dimension Police, yes, you do want to use Stark. Stark is actually one of your win conditions because you can give it more power, you can give it more crit, attacks 3 times, so it solves big crit, big power, 3 attacks. That's what you want, right? And then overall, your other attacks with Dimension Police are hitting big attacks anyway, so by the time you Stark them, they ideally do not have any Guardians available. For Link Joker, you kind of do as well, because normally, like, the big problem with Link Joker is that the finishes are either terrible or okay. And what I mean by that is that it's not like Messiah, right? You're basically playing a control game until you reach Integral Messiah, and then you kind of win the game there. And then you have deleters, which delete your opponent, and then you do multi-attacks on the deleted Vanguard and kind of win like that too. Stark kind of is your, like, win more or secondary kind of ultra max power killing machine. So rather than, like, think about it this way, right? Instead of integraling your opponent down to 5, what happens if he has no cards in hand? Why would you give him cards, right? What happens if you know the 5 cards in his hand is just garbage? So you just do the normal just delete a Messiah way, is just delete his Vanguard, and instead of going into the Integral, you just go into Stark and attack him 3 times, right? And then if your deleters, then you just delete his Vanguard and then just 3 times. So it's pretty much the same thing. And since you're Force, you can give it Force 2, and then it becomes a very scary double crit killing machine. So Link Joker there, I think it's great. Another thing, like, if you're still running Chaos, basically Chaos has no finishes except for Chaos like, not Universe, but, you know, basically, all those old Chaos cards, right? That hand, you know, close will discard their hand or lock from hand and stuff. That's like their only finisher. But does it really do anything that much nowadays? Not so much, I think. So Stark there is still a nice finisher, though it's something that you won't go into as often as the other builds of Link Joker. And lastly, you've got Nova. Nova, I'd say, is a no. But the problem with Nova is that there's basically no good strides. There is no good strides, okay? If you're playing old Victor, you have your favorite champs, you have your Bustards. Now, what else are you doing? I don't think you're doing much. So, because of that, I think Stark might actually be a yes then. And also, if you busted too hard, you might draw too many cards or drive check too many cards. You might be at a situation where you can only Stark. So, maybe Stark is a yes, but that's basically because the strides for Nova Grapplers are great, which is kind of interesting. But overall, yes, Stark did go down in price. It's just not... The clans, again, it supports. Nova's not a thing, Dimension Police not a thing, Link Joker not a thing in the meta at the moment. So overall, although it's a strong card, you still use him in 2 out of the 3 clans for a Stargate, but Stargate in general right now is just not great. And then lastly, we've got our big buddy Dust that got nerfed back in G-Era because it used to be really, really strong, and then after that, it still was really strong. Now, Dust has definitely gone down in price. It used to be the peak Zeroth Dragon, because it's just the best. It's just the best, alright? But nowadays, because of changes to guarding, so before you could only guard with cards that were equal or less than the grade of your Vanguard, so when Dust changed it to 1, you could only guard with 1s. But nowadays you can guard with anything, so that's kind of changed. The thing that it's still important is that you can still, it still negates G-Guardians, which is a big important part of Dust. But I guess another thing is, like, when it deals 1 damage, if they get a damage trigger now, if it's a V trigger, you just feel bad. You get a 10,001 instead of just 5,001. So kind of, that was also a bit of a nerf. But what clans still play Dust? So out of the four Soul clans, Dark Zone clans. So GC, I'd say it depends on the build, because if you're playing Time Leap, then Dust Time Leap is pretty good, because multi-attacks is good on like a 1, on the Power 1 Vanguard. PM, Pale Moon, is a definite, because it is one of your important ways to finish your opponent. Kill, again, the idea of putting your opponent at 1, and then just multi-attacking, and they can't G-Guard, so pretty good. DI, okay, Dark Irregulars. Would I... Like, the thing is with Dark Irregulars is, when you think of Dark Irregulars, the entire clan is just revolving around destroying your opponent with Gasteel. So dust comes up pretty rarely. In fact, it probably doesn't come up at all most of the time. So I could say no on Dark Irregulars just because of that. If you're focusing on Gasteel, that is pretty much your entire G-Zone. Gasteel and Bladdermouse, right? But there is situations where you Gasteel and you Bladdermouse, and then you have to still finish over your opponent because it's been such a grinding game. So you have Hope on Dump, and basically he just wins you the game. But after that, or your Hope on Dump went to the dumpster, right? Then you can dust. So this is like I think this is like a 1 to 3% play. Like see like in maybe like 3 out of 100 games, something like that when you play Dark Irregulars. So I don't think it's that required, but it's good to have because Darker is just your G-Zone is just pretty simple. And then spikes. Okay, spikes, I'd say it kind of depends. So if you play Hell Hard 8, I don't think you need it at all. You just go Hell Hard 8 and win, right? If you go a more aggro build of spikes, then I think you can consider putting it in your deck because it negates G-Guardians. What's more to say, right? It negates G-Guardian. So I'd say like, I don't want to say a maybe, but I'd say just buy Dust, man. Just buy Dust, alright? Dark Zone clans, like Dust is actually not that expensive anymore if we think. This is like probably one of the cheaper ones. Like Sark, I think, is the cheapest Zeroth Dragon right now. But yeah, this only ships to Australia. But when you look at them, right, Dust, it was 32 out of stock, 42 out of... Just get a Dust, man. I think you can easily get a Dust. It's like 2 VRs, and basically every single Dark Zone clan. What are you building for every Dark Zone clan, right? What GC? Oh, I need a next stage. Maybe I need a Grog Dragon, tear rounds and stuff, and then you got a slot for Dust. Same with anything like PM. Oh, you run a Vet, you run like Harry's. Yeah, just one slot left. Yeah, put it in the Dust. DI, yeah, we already talked about the DI's G Zone. So. That's it for I think that's it for all the Zeroth Dragons. Basically, they're still quite required for some decks, like Zoa, 2 out of 3, Stark, 2 out of 3. But then things like Drachma, Ultima, very dependent on the deck. And then Megiddo, again, 2 out of 3 as well. And then Dust, I'm saying, yeah, just go for Dust. Dust is fine. But in terms of priority though, the Zoa is very high priority. The Megiddo, very high priority. But then apart from that, I think Stark is kind of high priority when you play those 2 Stargate clans. The rest of them is kind of not that super high priority if I was to be less harsh. And a lot of them can go more like to just get them when you can, but don't worry too much about it. Like Angel Feather for Ultima, yes. Gold Paladin for Ultima, yes. But the rest, like, I think for like Blasters, I think you can kind of push it off a bit. And then the rest is like OTT, you definitely don't really, and others just play more faster. Alright, play more. Alright, so that's it from me. Let me know what you think of Zeroth Dragons, and I will in the comments, yeah, like and subscribe, and go check out Zero Tournament this Saturday. There's still spots, so yeah. No, it's Sunday, yeah, this Sunday in Australia, but I think it's Saturday for like America, but it's basically in the Southeast Asia time. So on Sunday there's Zero Tournament. Go check that out. It's in the description as well. Still, it's teams. Still time to sign up, so might as well, right? Have some fun playing Zero. Alright, see you guys in the next video. Bye.